listeners, and welcome to the Downright Upright Show, the place to go to hear out loud and proud what people like you are thinking. And I am your host, Philip Anthony. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope everybody out there is doing fantabulous. And fantabulous is fantastic and fabulous put together twice as nice. And I hope you are feeling fantabulous with this atmosphere going on in this country right now. I'm going to go off the record a little bit here. I looked at my 401k today.
That's a bad idea.
I know. I thought it was Bad Friday. This is a taped show, by the way. We are on the air every Saturday at 5 p.m., but we tape ahead of time. So I hope by the time this airs, it's a little bit better. But anyway, my special guest today is Troy Strand, who is an education leader in the Twin Cities. Over the last 15 years, he has worked as an instrumental music teacher, STEM specialist, and instructional coach in a variety of public and charter schools. In his current role, he designs and delivers professional development, coaches and mentors early career teachers, and works with school and district administrators to develop equitable grading systems that foster student agency, deep learning, and collaborative faculty growth. Finally, if that wasn't enough, Troy is a proud member of the LGBTQ plus community. So welcome, Troy, to the Downright Upright Show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. And your voice is very necessary in these times, especially in the education realm. So before we begin the interview, I want to mention that you recently announced something, that you're engaged to your husband-to-be, who I adore as well.
Same.
You too. I just wish you the most happiness, and on behalf of my audience as well. We really hope that you have many, many, many years of wedded bliss.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, that's the plan. Well, Bjorn and I are going to be 17 years the end of June, I believe.
It's amazing.
I know, it's crazy. Anyway, so customarily, the first question I ask is a background question, to set a foundation, So would you tell us where you were born, raised, educated, and perhaps share some of your earlier experiences for the listeners?
Sure. Yeah. So I was raised here in Minnesota. I grew up in the Anoka-Hennepin School District and graduated in 2002. I went to college in Tennessee, got an instrumental music education degree, and then I did my master's in composition at Central Michigan University. And a big part of the reason that I wanted to become a music educator was because I wanted to write music first. That was my big goal. Was very inspired by a lot of different band composers who are, working today, and wanted to kind of just share that love with, young people. And it was never really my goal to be a teacher who develops a bunch of amazing professional musicians who do it as a career, but to develop, young people who understand the power of discipline and intentional practice and sensitivity and teamwork and all the things that instrumental music really kind of instills in people. And I just, wanted to share that. And it's a part of my career. It's not everything right now, but it's just been very rewarding.
By the way, do you play any instruments? I never asked you that.
Oh, yeah, I do. I mean, everybody, I would say I can play the band and orchestra instruments to about a high school freshman level, except for the bass trombone and tuba, which are my principal instruments. So I'd always tell my students my goal is to get them better at their instrument than I am, unless they play the trombone. Then, good luck.
Yes. So what was it that prompted you to become involved in education, especially in music education? And I heard as well, composition writing. Is that something else you teach?
Yeah.
Wow. So can you delve into that a little bit?
Yeah. So I moved back here after my grad program in composition, and got a job working at a community music school here in the Twin Cities, and really wanted to kind of build in more of the composition aspect of music education into a traditional band program. There's a lot of opportunity, I feel, in helping students to create in the music space. It's a lot easier in visual arts to create your own work as a student, but there's so much theory, background, and knowledge that goes into it, and just time with writing music that it's not addressed frequently in public school instrumental music programs. And I was really excited to bring that kind of a lens to it. So I got to work with students to produce music on like GarageBand on iPads and things at school. And I've taught some composition summer camps and a composing for video game summer camp that I did for about 10 years. And it's been really exciting to share the gift of writing music with young people and kind of help them find their, creative voice.
Yeah. I should have had you and Sumanth, who was a guest on the show, actually the lead singer of the Gated Community.
Yeah.
You both do the same thing. He teaches music theory in the U of M.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that would be an amazing show to have the both bouncing off each other. And I just sit there look in bewilderment, because I love music myself.
Yeah.
I told you that I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a household where music was played a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my refuge, during my abuse. And so I used to go in the room and just put, records. That's how old I am. We played records in those days. And that was my way of, blotting out all the drama that was going on around me. Yeah. So that's why I love music, let's see. As a music instructor, you brought to your profession a love of music. What kind of music did you enjoy before you entering the educational realm? And what kind of music do you enjoy today? Is it the same, or are you in the same, bubble when it comes to music?
I have always loved electronic music when I was a kid. Like, techno was my jam.
Wow.
I never went like raving or anything with glow sticks and pacifiers, but I was a little young for that, I think.
Depeche Mode kind of stuff?
Yeah. Prodigy, Fatboy Slim, LCD Sound System, and that kind of stuff when I was younger.
Wow, yeah.
And then jazz and just kind of contemporary band music. Frank Ticheli, David Holzinger, like band composers of like the modern day. Because that's what we played in my high school band and middle school. But as far as, music evolving, most people kind of settle on the music that they found at the age of, 12 to 16, that early adolescence that kind of developmentally stays with people. And that's like their preferred genre for
I agree with that.
Their adulthood.
Absolutely.
Yep. And I still enjoy the same kind of stuff I did when I was younger, but I just love finding new music. And so anything, with like some good synthesized instrumentation, I just love, purely electronic music. It's really interesting what they can do with, a couple of sound wave generators and some filters and stuff.
Yeah. And
that I've continued to, enjoy indie electronic kind of stuff. So yeah, it's grown and changed, but there's always, I don't know, if we're not welcoming new artists, then it's going to stagnate, and I want to make sure that contemporary musicians feel supported and that they feel the love of their community and their fans, no matter what, who they are, what they're doing, their scope, like, some little no-name indie band deserves just as much love as Taylor Swift,
Well, yeah.
So
like the Gated Community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're amazing. I have to go see them. They're doing their first concert, so I'm really interested in going to see them. They're
exciting.
A great group.
Yeah.
By the way, as far as synthesized music is concerned, I heard the very first pop song that made it, that was considered a techno song, was Donna Summer's I Feel Love.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
Now that song, I remember David Bowie freaking out about that at the time. He was on TV like, that's the future. He
Mhm.
said, and uh, I was going to the gay clubs back in the day, and I remember that song was the jam.
Yeah,
People, you'd hear that, and people would run onto the dance floor and just, you know, dance the night away. It was
absolutely.
amazing. Great song.
Mhm.
I would suggest all you younger people that listen to the show check that out. I Feel Love by Donna Summer. Yeah. So through my legwork, I also discovered you were a STEM teacher,
Mhm.
STEM. So can you tell the audience what that acronym stands for? And as a follow-up to that, why do you believe that's important, STEM? Why would, first identify it and then let us know why you think it's important.
Sure. So STEM is a movement in education. It stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And it's kind of a foundation of, there's sometimes programming, sometimes there's learning how to use different software programs, there's robotics, there's digital and physical manufacturing. And it's important because of the really strong connection between, schoolwork and career readiness. That, there are so many careers that we don't even know will exist 10 years from now. I mean, with the change of technology every single year,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know what the future holds. And so kind of having that agility of mind for students to be able to take skills that they've learned in one context and apply them to another, and making sure that they have kind of a solid foundation of knowing how to navigate, websites and hardware and all the different tools that they're going to be using every day. It's really fun to watch them kind of grow and create things, because the barrier to creation for pretty much anything is so much lower now because of technological advancements. So in the music space, allowing students to be able to produce their own electronic music with, intuitive interfaces on things like GarageBand on the iPad has been a lot of fun. But then, 3D printing, laser cutting, kind of taking their creations and digitally recreating them in a physical space it's really cool to just kind of get them, making new things and thinking creatively and solving problems through technology. And so I worked in a couple of different maker spaces where there's kind of a variety of physical tools, digital tools for fabrication and for, woodworking in the more traditional sense with, table saws and routers and lathes and things. But then, supplementing that kind of stuff with 3D printing and, 3D milling and kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the woodworking thing because you have a business that you run
I do.
that will be present at Pride.
Mhm.
And I think that's are you doing just Twin Cities Pride? Or are you branching out? Do you know?
Currently, we're signed up for Twin Cities Pride, and we're looking at other, kind of satellite prides around the Twin Cities.
Would you like to promote it on this show? Like, maybe you have a website where people can go, maybe
Yeah.
purchase. Beautiful. I mean, beautiful LGBT logos and fans, and you gave us, my husband and I, a beautiful plaque that we hang up in our house.
Well, thank you.
It's incredible work.
Thank you.
I would suggest everyone out there go on the website.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out. You're gonna, if you don't buy something, I will be so shocked. So, what can you give them the website?
Definitely, yeah. So it's grainybrain.com. So like wood grain and a brain. My kind of thought with it was thoughtful gifts and home decor, and a lot of my stuff is kind of nerdy. I'm a very big video game fan. And so, yeah, it's called Grainy Brain Wood Creations, and it's grainybrain.com.
Grainybrain.com. So GRAINY
Correct.
brain,
Yep.
BRAIN.com.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
There you go, people. You got to do it. You're going to love the stuff. Everybody that's of my friends that's been to your booth loved it.
Thank you.
It's such incredible creativity on your part. So I would suggest everybody go and check it out.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go to the next question I have on my agenda. So another passion of yours is grading reform, which, like, when I went to school, we as a young kid, we had A, B, C, D, and then you had the plus and minus. A plus, minus, A minus, B plus, B minus. That was the grading system. Then as I got a little older, they did numerical grades like 95. Anything over 65 is passing. Yada yada.
Yep.
Down the road. So, how would you like to see schools alter, if you do, the way they evaluate student performance?
Yeah. So the grading system you're describing is the traditional American grading system. It's been in place for over 100 years.
Yes.
And it just, in my opinion, has kind of outlived its usefulness, if it ever was useful. It was originally designed and kind of adopted from Austrian education systems that really reinforced like compliance and rule following and obedience to basically make factory workers and or soldiers as adults. And so the school model that we've been using for 100 years in this country has been designed to create compliant, obedient, non-thinking people who just kind of are willing to accept what they're given and not really question it. And I'm not sure if COVID was the reason that things are kind of breaking, like at the seams. But it's really interesting to see students right now noticing that it's not fair, it's not reasonable, it's not intuitive in any way. We just kind of tell them that the only way they're going to learn is by getting a certain amount of points and a certain percentage, and every single little thing you put in there is going to affect that overall final grade.
Can I deduce from what you're saying, and I could be wrong, but that you don't believe in teaching to the test? Is that what you're saying? Is that what this is about? Because the grade is going to depends on, if I taught you something, and so this is what you have to know.
Right.
You can't branch out and, expand on that. Am I close to what you're trying to express there?
Yeah. So there is a place for standardized testing. Like in Minnesota, we have the MCA test and we have the MAP test and different things. And then there's ACT and AP tests and all those kinds of really reliable and valid assessments that are developed by professional assessment designers. But teacher tests are not made with the same level of rigor and the same science behind it. But teachers were never trained to make tests. And that's okay. We were trained to instruct and to be content experts. And one of the biggest initiatives in my career that I've been working with is transitioning the district that I'm in right now to a standards-based grading model, which is probably about 20 years old as far as like popular culture and knowledge goes. But education is just always slow to change and adopt new methods of thinking or instruction, and basically instead of having a 100-point scale with 90 to 100 as an A, 80 to 90 as a B, and everything contributing to that overall grade, like 2 points off on this quiz in September is going to impact your grade in December. That model is what we call the traditional grading model. And we have been working to replace that with a system of number scores corresponding to a proficiency scale that emphasizes a specific state standard or national standard. That's basically a statement of what a student can do. And so at the high school level where I am, the state high school standards in Minnesota are quite rigorous. They're the highest levels of, public education, math, reading, science, all those things. So if a student can do what is expected at that proficient level, then they would earn a score of a 3.
Oh, we're hearing bumper music. Here we go.
Excellent.
Well, we're going to continue talking about this on the other side. My name is Philip Anthony. This is the Downright Upright Show here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
They say my name's a teacher. Oh, that is what I call myself. And I have a lesson that your children well. Their father's hell did slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams.
Welcome back to
The one they
Downright
picked.
Upright Show. My name is Philip Anthony, and I'm here with Troy Strand, an educational leader in the Twin Cities. Before the break, we were talking about standardized testing and why you are a little sour on that. But we're going to go into what you are for, and that would be...
Yeah. So the traditional grading model of 90 to 100% on all the work combined and average it all together has kind of run its course. And a very exciting shift that is being adopted in a lot of districts across the country is standards-based grading, where the state standards that have been defined or national standards. There's a lot of different options that states have. The statement at the standard level, what a student should be able to do by the end of this school year in this course. If they can do that, they earn a score of a 3. And then if they can kind of do something beyond that, they might earn a 4. But all those number scores with 0s and 1s and 2s being sort of like steps toward proficiency or maybe some basic content, you're getting a number score of 0 to 4 instead of every single thing being points and percentages, and the percent correct out of the percent possible is your percentage point score, and then all of that is combined into one big thing. But in a standards-based grading system, you have opportunities to try a test again if you didn't do well the first time, or to try kind of a different assessment. If the standard is asking you to explain the role of endothermic reactions in the earth energy sphere. I'm not a science teacher, but I've been working with a lot of different teachers in this role. There's a lot of different ways that could look. A student could talk about it. A student could take a test. They could do a lab, write a paper, or make a presentation. And when teachers are content experts, which they have to be in order to be licensed, they have the opportunity and ability to skillfully assess students on if they are proficient in that. If they know those things, they are considered proficient. They earn a score of a 3, and it's not about, well, you got 2 wrong on this test, so you only got a 95%, and then that's going to lower your overall grade. And I mean, the amount of students who take a test their senior year and do really poorly and just do the math and see that they can't get an A in the class anymore, it really sends them into kind of an existential crisis as they're preparing for college and making sure that their transcripts are, immaculate. All of those things, those constant pressures on students with really high stakes tests, has done a lot of damage to students and, their sense of self-worth, and putting all of their worth and value into that number. We're trying to just kind of reduce that and make sure that students focus on learning and not about just points on the test.
So is it kind of like pass fail?
It can, yeah.
Because that way you're not, you don't know how, if you're on the higher end of the pass or the lower end of the pass. Everybody, if you the teacher feels you're proficient, you pass. If you don't, you may have to do remedial work. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So on any individual standard, they would, earn a score of a 3 if they're proficient. If they're not yet, maybe they know the basic stuff, they'd get a 2, or maybe a 1 if they can do it with some help, or a 0 if they just can't yet. But all those different scores are then in our system combined and averaged to make a class grade. So if a student has a 3.2 average or higher, they have an A in the class. So in order to get an A, you need to be proficient in all the standards and exceed a little bit more of some of them.
Well, I agree with that. I think that's much better than, getting an 89 and somebody gets a 90 and they look and they're like, oh, I didn't get a 90. It's kind of like competition, and school shouldn't be about competition, should be about education.
No, exactly. Anyway,
so what do you wish more people knew about public education today? That's a general question I want to throw out to you.
I wish more people knew that kids are being just assailed by so many temptations, and basically in the form of their phone. There's so much entertainment instantly that distracts them from learning. There's so much peer pressure and social pressure and
Bullying.
yes, absolutely, that happens online. And it's so tempting to just like blame kids for being addicted to their phones and like make fun of young people for staring down at their phones all day, but they don't know that they're the victims here. They're being raised in increasingly attention-rich environments, and everybody's vying for their attention. And it's not their fault that it's hard for them to really keep the focus. I mean, the state of Minnesota recently required school districts to enact a cell phone policy by the end of this school year. And so it's been really exciting to see districts like stepping in and saying, you know, no phones during the day, no phones during classes. Maybe we'll allow them during passing time. But it is an addiction. Cell phone addiction hasn't been named by the, you know, American Medical Association or anything, but it is, there are proposals for it. It's really no different than, you know, addictions to gambling or other kinds of non-physical or non-chemical things. But it is absolutely an addiction. And my personal opinion on a major problem facing kids is that their audience is just so skewed. They really think that so many people are looking at them and paying attention to them, because the trick of technology is that it looks like everybody really cares about you with likes and shares and comments and retweets and things. But but it's no different. Like, you have a pimple and you think that everybody's going to notice that. Nobody really cares, but you think that everybody does. So magnify that when we were growing up to, you know, millions in your audience instead of just like the couple hundred kids in your school. Like, that's terrifying, you know? And so I want kids to have a little more grace, or be given a little more grace by, you know, adults and who don't understand that they're really being the victims of tech companies right now. Exactly.
And I remember growing up, we didn't have phones.
Right.
And I remember, see, tech is always evolved somehow or another. I remember when they used to collect calculators when you went in the classroom, when you had a test, because the kids, some would sneak them in and they would use the calculator to do their math problems.
Right.
See, now it's not, we're way past that now. Now we're in, you know, can't bring your phone into school,
right?
You know, so yeah, it's an evolution, you know. So I want to dive a little bit into the LGBTQ plus community, because, as you know, both of us are members, and we love our community and we want to enforce authenticity, you know.
Yeah.
So what are some of the current challenges teachers face today? And what are some of the challenges facing LGBTQ plus teachers today? So teachers in general versus LGBTQ plus teachers.
Yeah. I would say, I mean, this is a very recent kind of a shift, but this idea that parents are supposed to have so much control over what children learn in schools, and not even their children, but all children. There has been a really, I mean, I would say since the middle of the Biden administration, there's been a really strong community push from the right to kind of infiltrate school boards and influence policies and ban books and, you know, lobby legislatures at the state level to enact more restrictive policies on what students are just exposed to in a school setting. And it just, it's so baffling that this narrative has just showed up, and it feels to so many people like this is how it's always been, that parents should have control over this, when forever parents have been able to just kind of opt their kids out of, you know, maybe a sex ed program that they don't approve of. You know, if it's not abstinence only, then they can choose to remove their student from that environment temporarily. That's always been a parent's right. But it's not a parent's right to say what everybody in the school should be allowed to read and have access to books in the school that feature, you know, trans characters, you know. Yeah, there's
insane.
I know. And it's like the number of school board, members and potential, members has skyrocketed from the right and from like really like aggressively conservative groups, like 1 Million Moms kinds of things. And
Moms for Liberty, I think, is another one like
Yeah.
that. But I want to ask you this. This
Mhm.
is something I didn't even prepare, but you got me thinking.
Yeah.
Why is it okay in some states that you put the Bible or the Ten Commandments in a classroom, right? But you can't have a LGBT flag. So you're indoctrinating kids to be a certain religion,
Mhm.
but to be inclusive, to include your fellow classmates who may be different, that's not okay. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, my thoughts are that it's obnoxious.
To say the least.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't have a good answer. I can't.
Yeah.
It's honestly very difficult for me to empathize with that. You would need your school or your child's school to match your own religious beliefs that just so happen to mirror your parents' beliefs, which happen to mirror their parents' beliefs. And most people in this country just happen to believe that Jesus is the reason that we are, a great country and that we're all saved and every other religion is wrong. And it's not surprising. We were not founded as a Christian country, and people have kind of just taken that myth and they've fallen for it,
Yeah.
And
Because I think most of the founding fathers, weren't they deists?
yes, they were.
Yeah.
Which is not super close to organized Christianity.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yes. So the LGBT students,
Mhm.
let's get, we talked with the teachers. What can we do to boost them up and make them feel good? I know Minnesota, we got it going on here when it comes to accepting
Mhm.
people that are different. What else could we do as you as a teacher to help an LGBTQ student?
Yeah. A lot of teachers in schools that I've worked in have had, safe space stickers in their classrooms or maybe on their faculty badges, like a little rainbow or, a pride flag.
Right.
And it's just like for students to know who is a safe person to talk to. And I'll be honest, it's largely unimportant. That's not as important as it has been in previous years. Like when I was younger, I was afraid to come out in high school, but I saw that some of my teachers had stickers on their name tags, and I thought about telling them, but I just wasn't ready,
Right. Yeah.
And I don't feel like kids feel afraid to express themselves and to kind of like explore their identity, gender, sexuality, whatever it may be. But the volume of the kids who come to school mirroring their parents and these conservative talking points at home, they have a platform and they feel emboldened to share their really hurtful, spiteful ideologies at school. And so I don't know, what can we do to support students? It's honestly just be ourselves and casually talk about your own.
Because some states,
Yeah.
they can't even talk about it.
No.
They can't even say, this is an inclusive class.
Mm-hmm.
They can't put a picture of their spouse on their desk because it's two same gender
Right.
people. So it's hard. It's
Mhm.
going to be a hard road to hoe now. And I hope that it gets better in the future. I mean, like you said, you don't know what to do,
Yeah.
just be as inclusive as you can as a
Mhm.
teacher and love your children, love your students.
Yeah.
There's nothing else you can do. Right.
Right.
All right. We have a few more minutes. I want to talk about the Trump administration.
Oh boy.
Isn't that exciting?
Mhm.
Anyway, the Trump administration has threatened to withhold federal funding from public schools that have not eliminated diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI practices, marking another move to enforce Trump's anti-DEI crackdown. The Supreme Court has since ruled in support of this ridiculous idea by a 5-4 vote. The justices allowed the administration to keep frozen $65 million for teacher training and professional development, halting a lower court order that had temporarily reinstated those grants. How dangerous would you say this is to those students who are part of marginalized communities today?
I would say that the worst part about all of that is disproportionately affecting students in states that are already so unfriendly to them. I mean, in Minnesota, our per pupil funding is so largely sourced by local property taxes. You know, like your
Yes.
local district is the majority of where your students' funding is going to come from. And so, to be totally honest, like all of those changes at the federal level aren't having an enormous impact in Minnesota, which I love. I love this state. I always
We're
have.
a blue state and we fund schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we have, you know, we're among the highest in happiness and in income and in IQ, like all, and literacy, all these things. It's no surprise that we have these strong values here in education. But when your funding is only coming from the federal level because your voters have been duped into thinking that these are good for their students, they're only going to exacerbate those problems. And it's the chilling effect that it has on individual teachers, and like the kind of water cooler talk that, you know, we don't talk about it, and we're just like, 'cause most, I don't know. I feel like most teachers tend to be further on the left side. We're a union profession. We're a blue collar profession, and it's eroding that confidence in the profession and making people wonder what's safe to talk about, which feels like McCarthyism and feels really disgusting.
Amen.
And I'm just not going to be afraid. You know.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you.
I do. You're amazing. Thank you. I wish I had a teacher like you growing up. Unfortunately, I didn't. Mr. McCarthy was one example. He saw the kids bullying me, throwing my books on the floor, you know, pushing me over and knocking me into the closet and all this stuff. And he laughed along with them. Catholic school, you know, so how very Jesus of them, right?
Exactly.
I want to piggyback on that question because we have 3 minutes. I just want to know your feelings about the defunding of the the Department of Education in the federal Department of Education. Now, some of this, like you said, our state, you know, we put money towards our children. What is going to happen when they defund the Department of Education in other states, like in red states? They're going to, you know, dumb down these kids? What are they doing?
Well, I mean, they're not going to give them the services that they deserve. That's really what it's going to come down to is it's so much special education funding and 504 funding, which is it's very similar to special education funding, but the kinds of qualifying diagnoses are different. So a student on a 504 might not have autism, but they might have something else like dyslexia or
disabled, maybe.
Yeah. So that is the place that disperses those funds, and so the states that don't value education as much as Minnesota does are going to be impacted a lot more by having less access to, you know, classes specifically for students with special needs, to have training for teachers to work with students with special needs. I don't know where that, I mean, they say the money is not drying up. They're moving into the, you know, Small Business Administration for like student loans. And that's not small business. Yeah. And this is trillions of dollars of student loans that they're trying to move to the SBA. And it doesn't make any sense. They say they want to defund the Department of Education and eradicate it completely because of the wild left curriculum, but it doesn't do any curriculum writing. That has never been done at the federal level. Yeah. States always have had control over the curriculum that they teach, and they're pretty different in different states. But I don't know why.
I don't either. Oh. But we live in Minnesota, so we are very lucky people, and our children are going to be rewarded for that. Anyway, we're going to have to take our second break.
Okay.
And we have a 10-minute segment at the end of the show. We're going to talk some more about education.
Excellent.
And maybe talk about a little bit of your coming out experience.
Perfect.
I'm sure the audience out there would love to hear that. My name's Philip Anthony. This is the Downright Upright Show here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Can you reach me? Over the phone and you let me go. Come on, people now, smile on your brother.
Welcome back to the Downright Upright Show. My name is Philip Anthony. I'm your beloved host, and I'm here with Troy Strand, an amazing educator in the Twin Cities. We're discussing education and its effect on the general community and also the LGBTQ community. So I want to pick up on that.
Mhm.
Now, as you know, this is a pro-LGBTQ progressive radio show. And I like to make sure I say both, because it's not only just about LGBTQ folks, it's also about progressive folks, people that are just allies, you know. So as far as you're comfortable, would you briefly tell us about your personal coming out story to demonstrate to the listeners why being your authentic self is so essential?
Yeah. So I kind of came out in phases, you know.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Telling some trusted friends and maybe a little bit in high school, but not really much beyond that. And then moving to a different state, trying to kind of pray the gay away at a very evangelical college. It didn't work. Spoiler alert. But there was a lot of religion, and I was raised Pentecostal, so there's a lot of religious trauma in my, you know, coming out experience. And the one major thing that just kind of transformed my life was EMDR, which is a form of therapy called it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
What?
It's a form of therapy that involves.
Is it kind of like that, Pray the Gay Away organization that?
No, this was a good thing.
This was good.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Help me here.
Yes.
Okay.
So this.
I'm losing you.
No, I'll get you back.
Get me back.
The kind of the final step for me in this was only this was like 3 or 4 years ago. So
okay.
I had been, you know, an out and proud gay man my adult life. But
Since what age, by the way? Excuse me.
Probably, I'd say 22, 23.
Kind of like me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that, there was just this nagging feeling that, what if I'm wrong? What if the church is right? And what if I'm going to hell? That huge emphasis on hell was very much a part of my upbringing, and the rapture and the end times and the tribulation and all that stuff. I didn't mention it at the start, but I actually do have a Bible minor because everybody at my college was required to have one.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I know, quite a bit about it. I'm not a believer anymore, but this final stage of my kind of coming out process was just kind of getting rid of that baggage of being afraid of going to hell, you know, and EMDR specifically was kind of the biggest healing thing for me. But as an educator, it was really important to me to be able to be honest with my students, because it's not controversial. It's, you know, a man talking about his wife with no allusion to anything sexual is perfectly normal. Like, you can mention, like, oh yeah, my wife and I went out for, you know, we went to dinner on Saturday. Or like, oh, that's a picture of me and my wife and my kids on my desk. It's not controversial. If that's okay to put on a straight teacher's desk, a picture of two men is perfectly appropriate to put on a gay teacher's desk.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I really, I couldn't have said it better myself, because nobody's teaching sexuality by having a person, a teacher, or even a teacher's aide, whoever, discussing their spouse.
Yep.
You know, it's not sexual at all.
No.
I mean, I don't look at married couples and go, I wonder what they're doing in bed.
Right.
You know, it's like, that's a sickness. I think you have a problem. You should go for help.
We do, yeah.
You know, I don't look at couples that way. I look at them like they love each other.
Yeah.
They're happy. That's the way I come at couple. You know, the couples that are presented to me.
Yeah.
I don't look at their sexuality or what they do in bed, and that just sounds sick to me.
I know,
doesn't it?
Yes.
But I want to get into don't say gay bills that are being passed around the country. They're just attacking this community left and right. Not only more the trans community.
Yeah.
We're next as gays, but we're going to be in there soon. What do you say about that? Really briefly, so we could get the other questions in.
Yeah, I mean, if I wouldn't teach in that state. is what it comes down to.
Exactly.
And I do think it's a goal of theirs to get those teachers out, and I guess that's fine. They want us to be even more separate as individual states. They want to sow that discord, and this is the kind of tactic that works.
Yeah. They're banning books. Even even talking about people that are LGBTQ, just to talk about it.
If your ideas are so weak and fragile that they're at risk by having a book that contradicts it, then it's not a good idea.
I love that. Can I use that?
You can.
That's a great way to put it. Yes. So let's move on to looking forward to the future of education. Can you briefly tell us what some of the positives are that excite you, and what are some of the potential negatives that worry you about the future of education?
Yeah. Some of the most exciting things I see are kind of an emphasis on diverse futures for students. For a very long time, it was you have to go to college, you have to get a 4-year degree, everybody has to go to college. And frankly, not everybody has to, not everybody wants to, not everybody's going to thrive there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people without college degrees have, perfectly well-paying jobs, and they're meaningful and satisfying. And, there's a really big emphasis in a lot of secondary schools right now for college and career readiness, being prepared for 4-year college, or going into a trade or into the military or
Trades,
volunteering.
yes. Mm-hmm.
And so it's really cool to see teachers, just like the language that they use is not about like, well, when you get to college, even that little when you get to college is very privileged. Some students just can't afford it. Some students will not thrive there. And it's the same kind of representation that LGBTQ students need. Everybody needs it. Everybody needs to see, positive role models in a variety of careers and contexts. And,
exactly. I heard this, that it would take 4 teachers to make the same amount of money as a plumber.
I don't know if that's true.
That's what somebody told me.
I mean,
that's hearsay. Obviously,
right.
You can't. It's not admissible in court. But I'm not in the courtroom right now. But I heard that, and it's possible. I mean,
some states,
maybe elementary school, maybe, I don't know.
In most states, it has to do with how long you've been doing it, and so first-year teachers make about half of what veteran teachers do.
Yeah. So, in the remaining time that we have today, are there any important issues that I haven't addressed and we haven't talked about that you would like to address in the next 2 minutes of the show? Last 2 minutes of the show.
That's a really good question. I think, people like the number one thing I would say is get to know young people and get to know beyond the headlines, beyond I'm a millennial. I'm what's considered a geriatric millennial at the age of 40.
Is that what they call it?
Yes. I'm on the very high end of millennial.
Uh-huh.
And the amount of articles that I would read about millennials killed this industry, they're not doing this, and it's all this they're demonizing an entire generation. And it's happening with Gen Z and now Gen Alpha.
Is that what they call the new generation?
Yeah.
The 18-year-olds, I guess.
Yeah, they're born after 9/11, and which was, I remember my first time working with a student who could talk.
Gen Alpha.
Yeah, Generation Alpha.
Why are they going
well, they got to Z,
X, and
they
then
had to
back
start
to A?
Well, it started with X because it was Generation Nothing. They were the forgotten generation. And they were much smaller and latchkey kids, and they didn't have, as involved parents. But just get to know some young people and look beyond the headlines that you see about they're expect everything handed to them on a silver platter, that kind of stuff. And they demand a lot of good things, and they're going to change our workforce. They're going to change our world. And it's really exciting. They're really cool, and they're really funny.
It's amazing to end on that note, on a positive note. I love that. Well, Troy, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. I love you so much. You're amazing. And would you come back again in the future?
Yeah.
And to my audience, thank you so much for your support over all these years. Downright Upright Show @gmail.com. We're going to kiss you, hug you, and wave goodbye. Thank you. Tune in next week. Bye.